All right. Uh, got breaking news, of course, if probably most of the world has heard over the last hour or so that someone made an attempt on Mr. Trump's life, former President Donald Trump in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure what city it was in, but um, there seems to be some more information slipping through stating that an individual has been killed along with what possibly could be a person that was attending it, and they uh, unfortunately was shot and killed as well. So this is what's going on, and of course, whenever you see political violence, and of course, what's taken place in the United States through its history, we have seen presidential candidates, former presidents, current presidents be attacked. We could go into a long talk about what happened with the Kennedy brothers, which for me will always be that it falls under state sponsored and not a single quote unquote lone gunman. I'll never buy that. I don't think anybody in their right mind would buy that explanation when it comes to the Kennedy brothers. But let's stay focused on what's happened here. And let's call a spade, if you will. There's too many guns on the streets of the United States of America. Too much access to it. People have a right to have them, but within certain conditions. It's just like driving. You don't get to drive because it's your right to drive as much as it's a privilege because of the responsibility that goes with driving. And I think there's a lot of people that don't understand that. So uh, we got what we got in this situation. We need to really do an internal dialogue, every one of us in this country, about what we want to do going forward. That means that's laws and regulations for people that own guns, that you have a responsible mental and healthful mental health, which probably means a universal health care system for some people. We can reduce the violence in the street by giving people who are poor access and help. We've been spending the last 45 years practically giving rich people that already have money. We now know using Chat GPT that if you run Chat GPT with the problem of homelessness, of mental health, and the weapons, drugs, it comes to a substantive helping people that are in this bracket. And it levels everybody's ship out. People that are middle class are not having their houses robbed. Guys that are working street and business are not having people jack them because there's more opportunity available. And for those who are just going to do it anyway, and I know there'll people don't make the argument, hey, they're going to do that shit anyway. Okay, then we need to think of a comprehensive way to deal with young people, to maybe get them trained and reintegrate them into society. But they don't get to have an ankle monitor and go back home and then cut it off to go out and shoot somebody else. It's ridiculous to think that somebody's up and suspected of 2 murders, and the dude is back in the hood with an ankle monitor, which he cuts off and then goes and shoots somebody else and kills him. That's ridiculous. And there's no red hat, blue hat bullshit here, because that's bullshit. What's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. And we could create a balance in this country where it makes sense. But we got to get money out of politics. It's excruciating. It's an abomination to have this much money in politics. It should be a limited amount of money. No lobby. Get rid of those bums and those rats and those bloodsuckers. You want to drain the swamp. You drain the swamp by getting rid of lobby. We got a Supreme Court that's bought and paid for. Clarence Thomas should recuse himself from being on the court for all the money he's taken from Harlan Crow. These issues are not going to go away unless we as people stand up and speak to them in a real way. I mean, you got the Federalist Society that set up our whole court. You got a Trump appointee that's completely destroying the Postal Service and Louis DeJoy. You got people that stand up and pawn themselves off as legit, like Rick Scott. And this guy is involved with the biggest Medicare fraud in the state of Florida ever at the tune of $1.5 billion. And turns around and finds himself as a senator or congressman or whatever. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Right now, from the Democratic point of view, you need to get off your ass and come to the camera and have your come to Jesus moment where you admit to the fact that you put the finger on the scale for Bernie in 2016 and 2020, that you completely ripped off these young people that finally found somebody that they could believe in. How funny that the youngest of us realized that one of the oldest of us was actually a good older person to choose. Donald Trump is a complete and utter joke. Joe Biden, complete and utter joke. And now the Democrats can admit to their bullshit, bring Bernie to the stage, and let Biden say, I'm stepping to the side for my friend, as Bernie used to call him all the time, my friend Bernie Sanders. And Bernard Sanders is now going to be the new presumptive nominee in this situation. It'd be a game changer, and you admit to the fact that you weren't correct in the way that the DCCC and the DNC and all them bums that are in there to push forward somebody that was so unlikable as Hillary Clinton. And you try to shove that shit down on our throat. And yeah, because our politics is corrupt, you get 3 million more votes than Donald Trump. But the people that are your superdelegates that's in your party, because Democrats have the superdelegates, they voted for Trump and swung that electoral college vote. So you're a double rat. You rip off all these young people, make them feel like they're going to actually get somewhere with a real candidate that's going to help them, and in turn help a lot of people all the way up the stream. The people that don't like it are the people that got all the money and never want to give up one dime towards a system in which they enjoy the most. It's the epitome of greed and stupidity. You're only as strong as your weakest link. But if you have 43 million Americans that are homeless with BlackRock and all these companies buying up housing stock, of you not having enough common sense to turn buildings that are in these downtown places into living spaces for people. When you're not giving people training, when you're not dealing with the health crisis that's in the country. Bernie is that guy. And now's the time to show and prove and level this shit out. There's a number of people that all voted for Barack Obama. I was one of them twice. And there's a lot of people that voted for Barack Obama that ultimately voted for Trump and will vote for Trump again. I don't buy it, but there's a lot of people buy it, and I understand why. And I don't want to call people that are in MAGA assholes and pieces of shit and all that. I don't want to do that. I want to say that a lot of them feel the same way I do, that they know they're getting ripped off by this current system. This current system is fucking everybody. That's middle class, upper middle class, regular working person to the person that's poor as shit in the street. And unless we come up with an actionable plan to deal with all these different aspects of American life, we're never going to get better. And we're not going to get better with two bum candidates. Bring Bernie back, and then you take Kamala Harris and you send her wherever you need to send her to, but not to the vice presidency, and you put in a gentleman named Jeffrey Sachs. Jeffrey Sachs is a very interesting dude that has a a very strong understanding of what's going on in the United States of America. All right, I'm gonna just okay. I'm back with you now, and this gentleman right here, his name is Jeffrey Sachs, and I've listened to this man a number of times as a contributor on CNN, which I know initially you always want to say, hey, you know what, contributor to CNN, there's already a weakness there. That's not always the case, and sometimes people have a lot of really good information, and you'd be surprised if you give them a listen. And this guy would be perfect as your VP. So you got Bernie back for your domestic aspects and to try to quell this thing down, and you'll quell it by evening out people's votes and letting the rich pay for their share to lower this level, to getting out of these wars and battles, of having the guts to go and negotiate so that we're not sending our troops all over the place and spending billions and billions of dollars, and stop giving away billions and billions of dollars, especially to a country as rich as Israel. And AIPAC to the top of the list of the lobbying that needs to stop in this country so that we can have people making decisions. I don't want Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or anybody else that's got that kind of money having a stronger vote than my vote or your vote or the guy lives next door to me. All that vote is one single vote, and then you're done. You don't get to do all this extra shit. So, Jeffrey Sachs, the guy's very interesting. Bernie, Jeffrey Sachs, let this guy go overseas and negotiate with these people. A lot of them he already knows. He's a very knowledgeable guy out of the State Department, and have a actual vice president that's doing something other than showing up at Charlemagne the God to say some old dumbass shit. You know, later for that. We are in a serious crisis worldwide, and we're staring down the barrel of World War III. And the last thing anybody with any sense would want is a war with Iran, China, Russia, none of that shit. We should be moving in another direction altogether, which is peacefulness on the planet. And let's save some money and use it for building some roads and getting some high-speed rail here, green jobs, and switching over to using hemp. There's so much data out here that hemp is 10 times the tensile strength of paper, of wood. And I'm looking at people out here where I live in the state of Texas, and they're building houses, and before they put a walls and all the framing and everything up, I mean, they're putting that framing up, it literally looks like pixie sticks. That with the strong weather, tornadoes, we need a whole new way of thinking about everything. And it starts with peacefulness. It starts with health. It starts with mental health. It starts with physical excellence. Get yourself healthy. Put down the cupcake and the chalupa. And I'm talking to myself, believe me, when I say that. You know, put down the beer, put down the brisket, and let's get down together in building something going into the future that's powerful and strong and uniting the whole planet. These are the values that I think a lot of people want to have, and we're so busy arguing about little bullshit. You got the red hat on, you got the blue hat on. Oh, you against Israel? No, you're for the Palestinians. Oh, you know what? Shut the fuck up. Look in the mirror, and as my boy Joey Swole say, let's get better. Let me also say that my brother Joe Rogan is a brother that has said some very profound things in the midst of smoking a good joint. And he said, if you're heavy, you want to do something about it, he said you get up and you can always do something different. And that's what we need to do. Something different. And it comes in all these different areas. You can't let pharmaceutical companies put on these stupid ass commercials and rip Americans off while you sell the same products to the Canadians for, 10 cents on the dollar, whatever it is the difference. That's ridiculous. It's unfair. It's ungodly. Every part of it is wrong. And if you are in the U.S. government and you have an ability to change that and you don't, then you need to be removed. We need to get somebody else in there to do this shit. Same thing with guns. Same thing with getting people mental health. Same thing with seriously dealing with the homeless. Do you know that I just found out that Denver did a thing where they gave people $1,000, just $1,000, and those people, half of the people that they had that was officially homeless in Denver, found housing and got themselves back on their feet. And they saved $560,000 in the process than what they would have normally paid to try to take care of these people. Wake up. Use a little fucking common sense. And a lot of people already have this data. They just don't give a shit. They don't give a fuck about anybody else but themselves. And that does not allow for human beings to evolve. You have to evolve and get better. And you can't get better if all you do is ever think about yourself. So, here we are. It's out there. I wish the very best to Mr. Trump. I do not want to see this kind of bullshit political violence. And Lord knows the people that I have loved and respected got killed the same way. That Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Medgar Evers, Fred Hampton. There's a lot of people that they were still alive today that despite all this greed and bullshit, we might have been able to find our way out of it. And when better, stronger voices prevail. And we need that right now. Mr. Obama, you drank the water in Flint.
And I hear you. We invest. Can I get some water? Come on up here. I want a glass of water.
Get a bottle. Bottle water.
I want a glass of water. Everybody settle down. This is a feisty crowd. Thank you. I really did need a glass of water. This is not a stunt.
And when I saw you do that, I realized that you weren't the man that you claimed yourself to be. And I could stack a whole bunch of other stuff that went on. The 2007, 2008 financial crisis. We would fundamentally be a different country if all you did was just give the money to the people instead of the banks that caused it. $77,000 was the number that this think tank worked out on how they had given all the people, especially people that owned the homes. You would have froze, automatically did executive order and froze all the ARMs that they sold it on. And people's heads would roll, especially at the Bank of America, some of these other places that were writing those credit swap derivatives and saying these products were good and making phony mortgages for people that weren't even alive. And nobody goes to jail for it. And then you break your last ass to put these bums in the street and regular people that took the PPP loans. They are bums and they're suckers, and a lot of them have a job. I know people personally that were at my previous place that I worked where they were doing this dumbass shit and they were working full time and had overtime available to them as well. I don't say that that's correct. I don't say that that's right. But what I will tell you that when somebody like Marjorie Taylor Greene got $20 million and then she turns around and has a $180,000 PPP loan forgiven, why? So maybe you had this business. Maybe it wasn't as bad as you said it was. Maybe you made money. And maybe if you didn't get rid of the Trump tax cuts that was still in effect, they're supposed to go out in 2025. That's why a lot of these billionaires want him to come back, because he hasn't done anything else substantial for people, regular people. You can make the one argument that's to Trump's benefit, and I think it's by pure accident, maybe force of his crazy personality and his childishness and his lack of understanding to what the United States has done traditionally. He didn't start more war. You can give him that as a small caveat. But I mean, we had a plenty going on, and we got 800 bases. You can scream about the Russians all day if you want, but they got like 15, 20 bases is what the official word is anyway. I'm not privy to intelligence information, but all public knowledge is that we're the ones that have all these bases. It costs a lot of money. Now we find out all you got to do is watch late night TV. You see, oh, did you work at Camp Lejeune? Oh yeah, you know what? You're exposed to dioxins and cancer. And the horrible stories I've heard about all these bases and what that means to the future of Americans. We don't need to be pumping, nearly $1 trillion into the Pentagon every year, and then you can't, build a bridge. You can't build any roads. You can't upgrade infrastructure. You can't give people a $300 child tax care credit. The Joe Manchins and the Christian cinemas of the world that pretend to be on the side of working people, then turn around and stab them in the back. We got a lot of problems. But I'm giving you the answer on how to fix it. You take this to Linda Chavez. You take this to Mr. Biden. You take this message of hope to the American people. And I promise you, you won't have to worry about seeing Mr. Trump in office again. Because Mr. Bernie Sanders will be there to do what he should have been allowed to do from the beginning. And you put Jeffrey Sachs as the vice president and do a very thoughtful process in the other leadership that you need to have. And we got to do something about the Chevron rule. There's a lot of people that don't realize that our wonderful right-wing, upside-down flag-waving Supreme Court, I'm bought and paid for justices and the Federalist Society bums have now created a thing where these agencies heads won't be able to make moves that keep these agencies together and make them functional in government service. This is a straight way of trying to destroy a certain level of understanding that if something is incorrect, it has to be corrected immediately once it comes to the attention of the head of any department. I don't have all the details, but look up this ruling because it hasn't got very much airplay on the bums on Clinton News Network, CNN, CBS, which is SEE, and then BS, NBC, bums, ABC, bums. George Stephanopoulos, will you ever ask the question of a guy that you were taking a picture with and Jeffrey Epstein on who he actually worked for? That all you talk about was what they did wrong, but you never talk about how, hey, it looks like he probably worked for the Mossad. And if that's the case, that means it's the usual thing that intelligence services have been doing since the beginning of time, honeypotting people, getting videos and audio of them doing things they're not supposed to be doing, and then saying to them, this is the agenda that we have, and this is what we want you to do. And it looks pretty clear that that's been working perfectly. If every time we look up, you got to send more money to the state of Israel. Why is that? Why is that happening? Because there's undue influence in our government and politics. And it's tiresome because most people understand this. This is no secret. You just do a little bit of reading, you start to see a pattern of behavior. All right? And data speaks for itself. And now all this data connects together. It's the very data that the stupid regular media never shows you. You have to get a piecemeal from different areas. And then you got to really think between the lines. We've got some people that are going to tell you some things that are correct, but they're overall a wrong source for that. And I'm talking about a guy like Alex Jones, a psychopath, says all this crazy shit. But in between the lines, sometimes some of the stuff and data he's given is correct. So you have to get data from a variety of different sources. Then you have to use critical thinking. And then you have to use additional sources of data, and that means reading books where people give accounts of what it is they're thinking or doing. You know, there's a lot of data out there and books regarding the Central Intelligence Agency and what has taken place through its outset, from the Wild Bill days and Casey, William Casey, and all those bums to what we have in modern time today. You know, we have to rethink every aspect of American society and stop wasting money on all these ridiculous individuals. Let them pay their share. Think of ways that you can take some of the best aspects of, say, the medical system that's in Singapore, which only counts 4% against their GDP, to water saving and desalination that's being used in Israel, has been used for a long time. A lot of the computer science that's in Israel, which they benefit from here, and then expanded upon it and in various ways that are very impressive. Every one of these countries, Germany, and their road building to the way they approach finance, there's a lot to be learned and used around the United States to improve the well-being of the regular person. And when that happens, all boats again will rise. So that's basically the end of what I got here. I just wanted to speak to what took place at the event in Pennsylvania with Mr. Trump. Again, I hope he's going to be fine, and that political violence is so much a part of American history, and maybe they'll have some real discussions about that. I doubt it. It'll basically be, oh my God. But we need to change and do things differently. And I will end it here. I hope that this gets to the bums in the Democratic Party to take their finger off the scale, ask Mr. Bernie Sanders to come forward and be that nominee, along with Jeffrey Sachs as an effective, real vice president for the first time that takes care of our foreign policy overseas and gets us out of all this war and maybe push back that doomsday clock you guys keep trying to push forward. Cut the shit already, grow up, and realize that we can all evolve as human beings on the planet.